eloquent slide again by Rags, triad to regenerate. So you need a scaffold, you need cells, you need bioactive molecules. But what about the human body? Does the human body not have this naturally? Well, it sort of does. It has a subchondral plate. It gives you the bone support, calcified layer. You've then got chondrocytes, the cells. You've then got growth factors, cytokines. So what goes wrong? Well, the cells senesce and are damaged. The growth factors, the cytokines, the pathways get interrupted. And the scaffold, well, that subchondral plate becomes thickened, and therefore it can't support nutritionally the cartilage on top of it. And that led to the thought that if we perforate the subchondral layer, it would allow healing. And that started with Priddy, actually in Bristol many, many years ago. And Priddy did massive open approaches. He folded the whole extensor mechanism down and did multiple drillings. Steadman popularised microfracture, and that wasn't with the deformed ACL starter rule that we all use. And then Dick Steadman had a very careful rehab programme afterwards. So carefully protected weight bearing and CPM very regularly, or continuous to start with. Nanofracture is an adaptation of this. This is a small, reproducible, sharp, single-use end, and it's a much better technique in terms of stimulation. And then please don't forget simple burring. So this just thins your subchondral layer but doesn't perforate that layer. And I think there are some potential benefits in that. You're going for the sort of a pink blush rather than red bleeding. Microfracture. The problem is that you get deformation with these large oars, and then you get an intralesional osteophyte, and there's a potential for kissing lesions on the patella or tibia on femur. So again, this was well highlighted by Rags, that those sort of kissing lesions that develop in the intralesional osteophytes, and it really should therefore only be reserved for low demand patients, if at all. So the stimulation techniques that exist, which are extrinsic, so not coming from the bone marrow just under the lesion. You could take some bone marrow from the aspirate using a Jamshidi needle. You can then think about concentrating that, and there are various proprietary blends available for that. You could take platelet-rich plasma. Probably now, I think we're settling on a leukocyte deplete formula. You can think about adipose-derived stem cells, and you can also look at the periphery of the chondral lesion where you have activated cartilage cells. So the damaged cells can be good to stimulate cartilage regrowth, and that's been used in minced cartilage. So the minced cartilage, early techniques, and there are some promising results, but it's new, so be careful. Evidence is still light, caution for now, but watch this space. Now, I don't do oats personally, so I've taken the next 3 or 4 slides from Rags's talk. Oats really robs Peter to pay Paul. So you take from one site and then you implant into another site. And I think there is a potential role for it, particularly in the younger patient. So you transfer a unit of cartilage, that whole bone-supported cartilage and cancellous bone beneath. Generally for smaller lesions with neutral alignment or corrected alignment with ideally a normal BMI. It does have a long history, but it does create donor morbidity. But it is pretty durable. And Trofer showed in 23 a really significant survival, 88% at 5 years. And he compared it against isolated osteochondral autograft versus allograft, and really not much difference. Further systematic reviews looking at this, large numbers, 607 patients, superior results in the under 2 centimetre defects, so better in the small defects. And with longer follow-up, symptoms improved in 72%, reoperation rate of about 20%. So it's about 80-20 again in terms of survival and success. But don't forget, if you put some metal into these patients and you preserve the biology around it, so it's not cartilage preserving of the lesion, but it's cartilage preserving of everything around that, and you do a focal resurfacing, you've got another 80% number. So at 10 years, you've got 80% survival, and you've got significant improvement in PROMs. So we did a systematic review of that, published last year, 13% revision at 6 years, significant improvement in reduction in pain. So in terms of what chondral surgery you can do, I tend to do a chondrocyte graft, and I do this open. You can do it arthroscopically, but it's just very difficult, and I find it much easier to do it open. So there I've put 2 grafts in. So talking you through it, bride the lesion, template it. This is how I've burred. So I've just burred till it's starting to go pink, not perforated, and then I put my chondrocyte patch on. You can double layer those to fill the defect more, and then put tissual glue on the top. So you can see on that one it's looking small. I've double layered it and then put some tissual on the top. If we're doing this as an AMIC with drilling, this is on a patella, so I've made some small drill holes after curettage, put the chondrocyte on, and then that's a scope picture at 18 months afterwards. So the patient's then going to look at you and say, what's best for me? So in terms of evidence, really, we don't know. We tried to look at it. The seismic trial was run out of Bristol, and we just couldn't recruit. It was particularly bad timing because people lost equipoise, and it closed because of that. So no one wanted to do microfracture because everyone thought microfracture was the work of the devil, as we've been told in a number of meetings. But the results of AMIC continued to come through, and there are loads and loads of papers. I've just picked one from Eustace Gill, and this is from a multi-national registry. Good results at a year. Of course, that's just short-term results, but this is just one paper published since that our trial failed. And because of these continued results, it was put back to NICE, and NICE eventually came out last September with the recommendations that scaffolds should be used. They just need to be monitored. So scaffolds are in NICE. Osteochondral allografts brings nicely onto Nick. The only reason I'm mentioning it is the small, new, very thin, off-the-shelf 2x2. They are technically osteochondral, but essentially it's a chondral disc. So evidence summary. Young, active, under 2 centimetres, repair, remove, possibly oats. Under 2 centimetres otherwise, the older, chondroplasty, may be stimulating the scaffold. Don't forget focal resurfacing in the older. Over 2 centimetres, over to you, Nick. Be careful with new technology and follow the proper research governance. So use that limited evidence that's there, assess your patients carefully, alignment with bipedal long leg standing x-rays, reconstruct or have normal ligaments, repair or allograft your menisci, and then you're into a shared decision as to whether you're going to do something with the cartilage. Use that NICE framework and your NHS England cartilage networks. So small defects, radiofrequency chondroplasty, stabilise the native cartilage. Scaffold and burr, don't perforate. Scaffold and macy. And then Nick is going to tell you about large defects. Thank you very much.